Brief little intro note. This is part of a series of lost reviews that I had written, but couldn't actually find the time to record due to one reason or another, or just basically from my stressful life. And well, now that I have a lot of free time, I figured I may as well record them and put them up. That way people can gauge my thoughts about films, because I know people have been asking Adam to see this particular movie and assumed I was an impartial voice, but given that I've already seen it, I figured I'd upload this so that way any of you who are bothering Adam, and for those of you who don't know, Adam Mickelson, host of Geek News Reviews and Opinions, also known as Drac2326, who want him to take me along to see The Revenant, I've already seen it, so here's my thoughts, so that way you can get my perspective on it, since some of you are curious. So yeah, this is the first of what I call the Lost Reviews. But with that, let's transition into the written intro. There are many stories of survival and heroism from the days of the Old West. Now, when I say the Old West, a lot of you assume that I'm meaning desert towns and shootouts at high noon. But back then, there were actually a lot of stories about the mountain men. I'm talking like Jeremiah Johnson, Jeremiah Smith, Kit Carson Jr., and countless stories of people like Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, and so on and so on. And naturally, as with any occupation that requires you to venture into uncharted territory with dangerous wild animals and righteously indignant indigenous people, there are bound to be stories of survival, hope, desperation, and of course, revenge. Now, finding a story is one thing. Making it compelling to a modern audience is another thing entirely. While I can't speak to whether or not any of the events of this film actually happened, what I can say is that this film's a bit of a mixed bag. The story in and of itself is pretty interesting, as it's a classic revenge tale set amidst the frozen wilderness of what I assume to be somewhere near the Appalachian Mountains, at least based on the research that I have done. I am by no means a history expert. I just regurgitate some information they talked to us about in school, so I can't vouch for any of the historical accuracy or geographic accuracy on that front. The first problem is that the film has a bit of a slow start, and I think that kind of stems from the fact that we start on an action scene, where we have the main character and his band of trappers trying to escape the Pawnee after a very savage and unexpected ambush. And after that action scene, we hit a good, 15-minute lull before we get to the inciting incident, the bear attack. Now, the bear attack scene goes on for a really long time, and I can understand from a stylistic standpoint because, well, the length is probably how it would feel for somebody actually going through the bear attack, but it highlights kind of another problem with this film, and that's the overabundance of single-take sequences, often referred to as oneers. Now, sometimes they work, as they help build mood, build atmosphere, especially when it's supposed to be a very tense moment. But then there are other times where they do these single-take sequences where nothing really happens, nothing's really conveyed, we're not really seeing anything, it's just basically, look at the pretty scenery. Another thing that also bothered me is some of the abstract sequences of this film, because for the most part the film is shot in a very gritty, rough style, but then to interject with some of these weird, abstract, existential moments, it just makes them feel out of place. It doesn't gel very well, it just feels like we're seeing clips from another movie being forced into this gritty survival story. The film is not without its incredibly engaging moments, helped in large part by the very talented cast of actors we're given. It's just that the pace of this film makes it a bit of a chore to get through, since the really good part of the story doesn't start until we're about 20 minutes in. Now, I understand you have to establish a lot, but when you start with an action scene, you set the wrong kind of tone for that. At least, that's my opinion. Now, I don't hate slow films. I'm just saying the opening action scene set the wrong kind of expectations for the film as a whole. Speaking of the acting, like I mentioned, we have really good actors in this film, really good performances all around. It just brings up a bit of an issue that I've noticed in regards to Leonardo DiCaprio's performances. Now, he is a good actor. He is a talented actor. I've got nothing against the guy. I'm sure he's decent in person. It's just that his problem is that everybody knows what he looks like. It's basically the same problem Brad Pitt has, where you don't really see the character, you just see Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's a bit of an unfortunate after effect from him starring in Titanic, where people kept trying to build him as some sort of heartthrob so that his image and his appearance is kind of burned into everybody's consciousness. And that's the real problem we have with Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's most apparent when you have him working across Tom Hardy a method actor who really disappears into every single role he plays. Now, I'm not saying one actor is better than the other, I'm not trying to bash, I'm just noticing this film kind of made that realization a lot more apparent to me when it comes to Leonardo DiCaprio's talents as an actor. Overall, the film has some good moments, but those moments are few and far between, and between some of the weird cinematography choices and some weird scene choices, it felt like some of those things were put in to pad the film out rather than to add to the story. Even if they wanted to show some of the minutiae, some of the details about the character's life, they could have done it in a way that didn't absolutely kill the pacing. There are scenes and acting performances that I really liked in this film, but for the most part, I felt bored. It was really slow and I lost focus many times while watching because it didn't really keep me engaged even when the good part of the story begins. If you're a fan of non-traditional films, you'll probably get a lot more enjoyment out of this film than I did, but really, that's just the long and short of it. Good performances, some good moments here and there, but it is painfully slow. All of that said, The Revenant gets a 3 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.